welcome to the first program that I've tried on Wednesday Wisdom. And here's the opening I want you to know, and that is if you're reacting, you're behind. If you're reacting, you're behind. That's going to be the topic of our conversation on the short time today. Just a little bit of background first. When I started doing Mythbuster Monday, it was just kind of fun because I heard so many things, like fake it till you make it, or if it's if it's not broke, don't fix it. Those kinds of things kind of got me excited about busting those myths and talking about that. And beyond my expectations, it's certainly been a success. And so I was thinking we're busting myths on Monday. Let's talk about some of the challenges and the problems of today on Wednesday. So I'm going to do this hopefully live every Wednesday, obviously because of my professional speaking schedule. It might not be at exactly the same time, but I'll do a better job of letting you know exactly when it's going to be on. But I want to talk about some of the challenges that I'm seeing as I'm working with organizations throughout the country and around the world that they're facing. Because, one of the things that has struck me is that many of our problems in today's AI transformed business world are very similar, whether you're with a major corporation like the ones I've worked with, like Cisco and Apple and SAP and on, Volkswagen, BMW, Stellantis, or you're running a local car dealership or a local dry cleaners, or an entrepreneur trying to figure out how do you handle all the changes and everything that's going on in today's world. And so one of the things that really struck me was that at a recent program that I was a part of, I'm sitting in the audience just like everybody else. I'm listening to the presentations that are being made. And it really struck me how much everybody was talking about from the stage to their team, was talking about here's what our competition is doing. And here's why we're number 3 in the market, not number 1. And here's why, and everything was based on what was happening with the competitor. And so that's when I realized everything that this organization was doing, part of the reason they were number 3 is because they're reacting. And as I said at the beginning, if you're reacting, you're already behind. What happens when a company is trying to catch up with AI, or leaders just know a disruption is right around the corner, but they know it's going to hit? Maybe they don't even know where it's from. Part of the research I'm doing right now also talks about this. This is one of the things I found fascinating is you don't know where the disruption is coming from. That's part of why it disrupts you. But you also don't know in many cases who your competitor is. I think Rolex was probably worried most about Patek Philippe, but it was Apple and the watch that revolutionized the watch industry and even took business away from the luxury brands like Rolex and Tag Heuer and others. It's amazing what I don't think the music business, Columbia Records worried about Warner Brothers, and then Spotify comes along. Hey, what, are you kidding? Because you don't know where this next phase is coming from. That's why you have to be leading your future, not letting it happen to you. So let's go through some of this problem and really try to focus on what you can do to make a difference, but also to understand if we don't identify the problem, we can't solve it. Here's number 1. It's the nature of reaction. What happens when we react? Well, typically a reaction is our response under pressure. It's what happens when we let circumstances dictate the next move. Reaction is survival, but I don't think reaction is a strategy in today's world. It's because it's not just change, it's turbulence. That's part of what I'm talking about in my new keynote, is that today's world is really about turbulence. Change was, we were here at point A, and we understand we've got to get to point B, and it's not going to be easy to get there, and we're going to have to be uncomfortable, but we're going from point A to point B, and we kind of knew where we were going. It was just a change, and it made us uncomfortable because it's not the way that we always did it. Well, today is turbulence. If you think about being on a plane, sometimes, I've been on flights that are unbelievable, terrifyingly turbulent. And sometimes it's in a thunderstorm, that the pilot can predict. Other times it's what they call clear air turbulence, where you're just flying along and all of a sudden it gets so bumpy it's unexpected. You don't know how bad it's going to be. That to me describes today's world better than change. So in this turbulent society, in this turbulent marketplace, in this turbulent economy, what do we do? So part of what we have to understand with this nature of reaction being response under pressure, technology, the market, customer expectations, what's happening in this turbulent time, they're evolving faster than most organizations are able to respond. Let me repeat that, right? Things are happening so quickly that customer expectations and the technology with which you handle it, and therefore that means the marketplace, in these turbulent times are evolving faster than most leaders and most organizations are able to respond. And there's also a cost of being reactive, right? Number one, lost momentum. You're always trying to catch up to the competition, or you're always trying to catch up to the latest trend or the latest technological advance, or what in the world's AI going to do? So you've lost momentum there. And think about what that does. Then that in turn reduces your confidence in your ability to act, right? Your teams feel uncertain because the directions keep changing as we try to keep pace with what others are doing. As you know, I talk a lot about distinction, and the cost of being reactive is also diminished distinction. The reactors imitate while leaders innovate. And once you're reacting, and this is a really important point, once you're reacting, you've lost control of the narrative, right? You're letting the times and the situations and the turbulence own the narrative rather than you being clear and focused on what would make you unique. Now, there's a power that will help us overcome that, and that power is the power of anticipation. It's not predicting, because a lot of times our predictions don't work out, but it is preparation. See, I'm talking about not just distinction, but going beyond that, because I think today's world is so much more demanding than it was when I was first writing about distinction 15 years ago. But these organizations that go beyond distinction don't guess the future. What they're doing is they're designing for multiple possibilities. All right, you ready? Here's the quote I want you to think about. Preparation is the opposite of panic. Okay, one of the things you've heard, if you've heard me speak, that I talk about is that what we have to realize is the opposite of courage isn't fear. The opposite of courage is complacency. Right? We're so complacent that we're not courageous to take any steps, to not do anything. Okay, so the opposite of panic is preparation. It's not that we're trying to predict the future, it's that we're going to analyze and prepare for multiple aspects of it. See, this anticipation creates margin. It gives you space for creativity and clarity, and as a result of that, it makes you more calm about what's about to happen. So, how do you go from reactive to proactive to predictive, right? Reactive is where we don't want to be, because that's buffering us around in this turbulence. Proactive means we're going to do something, but predictive, as I was saying, it's not that we're going to predict. It's not like picking a stock. It's not like being a modern day Nostradamus. What it is we're going to do these things. Okay, predictive means you're responding after things happen. Proactive means planning for what could happen. But transcendent organizations, those that prepare for all of these, these opportunities, challenges, changes we can have. The word I'm using is transcendence. How do we transcend all of these challenges that are confronting us? And it helps us shape what will happen. Here's a question for you. And after we complete this, we're doing this live. So after we complete this, and by the way, you can leave a comment and I'll share it. I'm using a new streaming technology here, and if you're watching after the live version of this, please leave your comment here on social media, and I'll absolutely respond to any comments, questions that you have along the way. But here's the question I ask of you: where are you spending most of your time? Whether it's as an individual leader or whether it's as an organization, where are you spending most of your time? Is it in reacting to what's going on, Is it in planning what you can do in various situations? Or are you willing to say there's a possibility we could transcend, rise above all these challenges and get into shaping? Reacting, planning, or shaping? Are you reacting to what others are doing? Are you planning for possibilities? Are you saying we're going to shape the future, we're going to shape who we are and what we want to be? And that's going beyond distinction. When we are transcending, when we're not just standing out, but when we're transcending, we're really making a difference. You know, it struck me. I for many years, and I love it, I've been a part of the National Speakers Association, of which we've joked 3,000 speakers, no listeners, but 3,000 speakers. But one of the things that struck me is the reason I wrote my first book on distinction was called Collapse of Distinction, because I saw commoditization, but I also related, I was going through a personal tragedy and a personal challenge and almost lost my own business. And I was trying to study what would it take to stand out and save my little business. And so that's where I thought that distinction was more important than differentiation. Differentiation meant that I would find something different about what I did as opposed to what other people did. But I realized that I could slap every customer in the face and I would be different. It didn't mean that was going to change my business or make a significant impact in my future. So I thought a higher level was distinction. Distinction meant to me that not only was there a uniqueness about what you did, but that uniqueness meant something to your customers and your clients and your prospects. It had value for them, not just making you different. At the last meeting of the National Speakers Association I attended, I counted 30 speakers there, and there's probably more, but I counted 30, that were doing programs on how to stand out. Now, it struck me, if everybody's teaching you how to stand out, then even standing out has become commoditized, right? I mean, everybody wants to stand out. Now, a lot of them don't know the process, and they haven't figured that out, but it's a hot topic, and so people talk about it to the point it's become commoditized. So then I got thinking, because as times change, people's change, and situations change, what does it take to go beyond that? And that's what I've been researching and working on, because I think that's the single biggest problem that businesses are going to have and that leaders are going to have. How do leaders lead in a transcendent opportunity, in a time that calls for business and leadership transcendence, to rise above the turbulence and really be able to make a significant and critical contribution? So here's some ideas, just 5 ways to stay ahead. Number 1, try to see farther. And the way you do that is you block it on your calendar. There's no other way to do it. You got to put it on your calendar to schedule time for strategic thinking every week. Number 1, see farther. Number 2, listen differently. Study the small shifts in customer behavior or the small shifts in emerging tech, because that's where the big changes are going to come. Study the weak signals, right? Anybody can study the big signals. Anybody can say, wow, AI is changing things. Where are the small signals in there where you might learn something or pick up something that would make a significant difference? 3, decide faster. We used to joke about, ready, fire, aim being a bad business strategy, but I'm not so sure anymore, because we've got to create cultures that reward learning speed, not just decision accuracy. Years ago, John Maxwell, that I serve with at High Point University on the in-residence faculty group of experts, he wrote a book called Failing Forward, and I've always loved that thing. And it's understanding that we're going to fail no matter what, but if we do it in a way that moves us forward and continue to learn and grow and get better, then great things are going to happen for us. So we need to reward speed learning, speedier decisions, not just accurate. And here's the last of the 5, okay? See farther, listen differently, decide faster, act deliberately. Act deliberately. That's the 4th one. Move before you're forced to move. right? Move before the market forces you to move. Move before a lack of customer retention forces you to move. Move before an inability to keep your good employees forces you to move. Act deliberately and move forward. And then here's number 5. Forget about the rearview mirror. See farther, listen differently, decide faster, act deliberately, forget about the rearview mirror. You can't lead by looking back. I heard a speaker, and it's kind of an old, it's kind of an old saying, but I love it because there's a reason the windshield is much bigger than the rearview mirror. We're supposed to be looking forward, not back. And that's a corny old saying, but I love it because it's so true. You can't lead by watching the rearview mirror. The leaders are the ones who are building it both for today and for the future. So here's the last thought on this Wednesday wisdom. Don't let urgency replace intention. Things are so turbulent. Many times it moves us to thinking everything is urgent. You have to have intention. And that's why we need to move from reacting to creating to transcending. And when we do that, we can make some incredible things happen for our organizations, for our careers, for ourselves. So that's Wednesday Wisdom for this week, and I look forward to connecting with you next week. And please leave comments. I look forward to responding to them, and I look forward to seeing you on Mythbuster Monday, which was recorded, and on Wednesday Wisdom, which will be live every week in the future. Have a great day. Look forward to talking to you soon.